Like my nightmare.
Can we play the safety video?
3 counties, 24 cities,
Probably saw my friend Sarah Sanchez.
working together,
A vlog or
accomplishing more than any of us could alone. Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro, the nation's only regional government elected by the people. Planning for the future, preserving what we love. Let's keep our region thriving for decades to come.
I'm Laura Lepley, a Metro Park Ranger. Here at Oxbow Park, safety is our #1 priority, not only for our guests, but for our staff members. I'm at the Welcome Center and you're at the Regional Center. The council chambers are located on the 3rd floor. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the stairway to the 2nd floor, exit through the main entrance by the reception desk, and gather in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the reception desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you, and come visit us at Oxbow Park.
Okay, declare a quorum and call the Metro Council business meeting to order. I will now ask our clerk, Georgia Langer, to call the roll for attendance.
Councillor Rosenthal?
Present.
Councillor Lewis?
present.
Councillor Nolan?
Present.
Councillor Simpson and Councillor Gonzalez are excused, and Acting Council President Wong.
Present. Thank you. Okay, let's open up public communications on non-agenda items. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures that we will use for public communications?
Yes, if you are testifying on non-agenda items, now is the time to do so. If you are testifying in person, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus, or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call on your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist, and you can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes, and the timer begins when you begin speaking. If you are testifying in person, their timer is located on your testimony table, on the wall, and on the digital screen. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. And Acting Council President Wong, I have not received any signups in advance, and I do not see anyone in the audience.
Okay. Great. With that, we'll close public testimony and move on to our consent agenda. We have 2 items on today's consent agenda. We'll start with item 3.1 for a purpose of confirming the appointments of Indigo Namkoon, Jeza Mosley, Michael Mirowski, Christopher Fortin Grijalva, and Lindsay Huber as community representatives to the Transportation Policy Alternatives Committee. We also have item 3.2, consideration of the April 16th, 2026 council meeting minutes. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move consent.
Second. Okay, it's moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Rosenthal. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes unanimously. Let's move on to presentations. We have Parks and Nature Local Option Levy, Current Investment Update, and Future Levy Work Plan. In our recent conversations about council priorities for the region, we've discussed the importance of Metro's Parks and Nature Levy to deliver on clean water, protected habitat, and nature close to home, as well as the need to replace the current levy before it expires in June of 2028. Today, we continue that conversation with an overview of the current levy opportunities and challenges. We also have time to discuss our direction for what should be included in a future levy work plan that will come to council later this spring. From Parks and Nature, we have Director Blasher and Funding Program Manager Beth Cohen. And from Government Affairs, we have Director Andy Shaw and Investment Strategy Manager Michelle Ruffin. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Acting President Wong, councilors. Thanks for having us today. We have a presentation that we'll pull up here. John Blasher, he and his Parks and Nature Director, here with our partners in Government Affairs to have a conversation about the Parks and Nature Levy, which is critical to Metro's ability to restore habitat, protect water quality, and provide nature experiences across the region. The current levy, which needs to be renewed by the voters every 5 years, will expire in June of 2028. Staff are developing a work plan to explore future options for a future levy, and we're here today to get some early direction to help inform that work plan. We'll start with a Parks and Nature presentation and then transition to our Government Affairs folks. We'll go to the next slide, please. So today's conversation is meant to reflect recent council discussions that established housing, the economy, and Parks and Nature that are top priorities for the council. This conversation also builds on the January 2026 work session on the Parks and Nature Roadmap and our approach to updating our levy and the Parks and Nature System Plan. You told us to keep working on information related to updating our system plan, gauge the temperature of key stakeholders and voters, so that's part of what we're here today to talk about. Our hope for today is not a focus on any specific funding scenarios or project priorities, but rather it's an opportunity for you to identify key questions and information about elements of a levy work plan so we can compile all of that and keep coming back to you with a more detailed plan. With that, I'm gonna pass it to Andy, talk a little bit more about the regional investment strategy.
Good afternoon, Andy Shaw, Director of Government Affairs. Yeah, so the levy measure will also be a chance to develop out and demonstrate key elements of the next stages of the regional investment strategy. RIS Phase 2 will advance your priorities developed in your council retreats this year, bringing together council's desire to build relationships, to connect to core values, and to continue investment in essential services and public needs. Parks and Nature is the natural first step. With decades of voter support, impacts and benefits that people can see and experience and enjoy across the region. However, we must be realistic about the shifting ground in the region. Vital systems and investments are under strain more than ever before, and we face unprecedented challenges in building public support. So today we want to talk about what we think this means for a new Parks and Nature levy measure, previewing the commitments and connections we believe will be needed to succeed in continuing this critical funding. Your direction today will help GATD and Parks and Nature further shape a levy measure work plan that will be prepared to bring back to you in the June timeframe. Our hope today, again, is not to focus on specific funding scenarios or project priorities, but rather to identify opportunities and key questions you have, areas for more information, elements that you want to hear more about, so we can put that plan together and bring it back to you in June. Back to John.
Thank you. We can go to the next slide, please. So whenever people in our region are asked what they like most about this place, they often say nature, and nature close to home. It's why we've come here to make a home or to start a business, and voters have said yes to nature for 30 years and have trusted Metro to deliver on our promises to preserve nature as our region grows, protect water quality, restore fish and wildlife habitat, and help connect people with nature close to home. So every time the voters have stood up for nature, they've taken part in a multi-generational relay that helps our region adapt and stay resilient in the face of flooding, wildfire, and other challenges. This photo is of Coffee Lake Creek wetlands in Wilsonville. 2 years ago, Metro restored this wetland that had previously consisted of a field of invasive reed canary grass and a ditch. So every single one of these sticks in the photo have been placed by hand and are going to grow into willows next year. Well, not all of them, because there's a troop of beavers that have already moved in on the site, and they're doing their part, bless you, to build their lodges and live in this habitat. So it's great to see that that work is already happening. We'll be able to share more about this work site a little bit later. You can go to the next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about our core services and the unique services that we provide to the region as an agency and department. Metro's Parks and Nature Services plan deliveries play an important role in bringing nature close to home through 3 core services. We are protecting and restoring natural areas, providing high-quality regional parks and nature experiences, and broadening our impact through grants, community funding, and partnerships. Our unique role in the region, which is again to protect these critical habitats and special places from irreversible development, is not something that many other providers in the state or region are doing on this scale. And as a parks provider, we welcome approximately 2 million visitors to our regional parks, boat launches, and historic cemeteries. And as you can see, we've protecting and managing 20,000 acres across the region, provided $190 million in grants and local share, and have over 5,000 plus youth and people taking part in our different nature education experiences throughout the year. So a lot of great work that's taking place. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Beth, and we can go to the next slide, please.
Awesome. I'm Beth Cohen, she, her. I work in Parks and Nature. Thanks, John, and thanks, Council, for having us today. So I'm going to spend the next couple slides talking about the current levy, but first off, just want to position the levy as part of the Parks and Nature Roadmap project, which we talked about with you in January, and which also includes updating the Parks and Nature System Plan and other policies that guide our service delivery for the next 10 to 15 years. We are planning several milestones with you on decisions related to the levy and the system plan through 2028. And we're excited to do this in tandem so we can match the service delivery priorities with the funding reality. But today we're going to be pretty strictly focused on the levy, and we can sort of identify things that need to go on the system plan conversation bucket. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. And I'll just do some levy basics just to remind everyone. So Metro Parks and Nature levy, first passed in 2013, is essential for helping us deliver on promises to the voters around clean water, habitat protection, and safe and clean parks. Our rate, which has not changed since 2013, is 9.6 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, raises roughly $19 million. And it continues to make up a significant portion of our operating funds. It was last renewed, thank you, to your leadership in 2022 with over 70% approval. And just to note kind of like what's changed since 2013, Metro's helped open 7 new nature parks and added more than 3,000 acres of natural areas to our portfolio. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So your direction in 2022 helped to make sure the levy framework that went to voters was aligned with their priorities and continue to be aligned with their priorities. Your direction also helped make the levy framework more streamlined and flexible to adapt to changing conditions and opportunities. This slide shows that the 2022 levy has 3 major program buckets with minimum allocations each year. Each year we report publicly on how our spending aligns with these voter priorities. So at least 40% goes to land restoration and management, at least 35% goes to park operations and maintenance, and at least 15% goes to community-led programming and grants. And there's 10% left each year that is intentionally left unallocated to give us some flexibility to add to each of those 3 categories. So we can go to the next slide. I'm going to spend the next couple slides talking about each of those 3 program buckets to give a better sense of like what that work looks like on the ground. So as you know, and as John just shared, our portfolio of developed sites is incredibly diverse with nature parks, boat launches, a golf course, and historic cemeteries. You also know that the development and improvement of many of these sites has been shaped by participation from community members, starting a while back with a program called Connect with Nature, which sought to center perspectives of communities in planning for sites like Chehalem Ridge, and continuing with current day engagement around the Willamette Cove Master Plan, Blue Lake Park Renovation Project, and Lone Fir Memorial. What levy funds do here is make sure that these sites that are special to community, planned with community, can stay safe and well-maintained trails, restroom, picnic areas, gathering spaces, and some of those amenities that we know are important to community. As you may recall that we shared last week, one of the things we've learned from some mapping is that about 98% of our region is within a 20-minute drive of one of these destination sites. So we feel pretty confident that they're providing an immersive nature experience for the region that doesn't require a really long drive out to the coast or other spots in the state. But the thing is, we also know that making nature more accessible is about way more than just where sites are located and distance. And so the levy funds investments in site experience, that plays a big role in making our sites feel safe and welcoming. And so the levy funds really come into play to support the following set of activities. So some of these will sound familiar from tours that you went on in the fall, but supporting routine cleaning, guest services, park rangers that are visible and ready to deal with anything on the safety front, maintaining trails, rule enforcement, reservations, and event prep, troubleshooting all different issues with wildlife and other encounters. So this happens at our busiest sites, Blue Lake Park, Oxbow, our 2 boat launches on the Columbia, but also our less busy sites, Killen Wetlands, Chehalem Ridge, Kanema Bluff, and others. The levy supports having informational signage at our sites, sometimes in multiple languages, and also safety features like life jackets available by water when there's water at our sites, or access to water, excuse me. The levy also funds really important ongoing maintenance work to track and help maintain our aging assets across some of these older sites, so we can minimize and be proactive about minimizing disruptions that a breakdown in a bathroom or another amenity would cause. And then the levy helps us address and is a good complement to some of our bond capital investments in ADA barriers. The levy allows us to address things that don't count as capital for ADA accessibility across our sites, like moving the height of grab bars in the bathroom, so small fixes, height of paper towel dispensers, and this has been in place at several of our sites. The levy funds, and I guess the other thing is they support our operations team, which welcomes community programming to our sites, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the levy funds support all this range of tasks and investments in place and people involved in keeping our sites safe, clean, and welcoming. There's obviously more need than we have the resources for, and this was probably a theme we talked about on the tours as well. So as we think about future levy conversations, we want to let you know that we're working to quantify and be able to share with you really in more finer grained detail maintenance and operational needs at these developed sites and articulate a baseline of the current service standards that we're delivering, things like cleaning bathrooms, picking up trash, staff hours on the site at our developed sites to inform conversations about where we are and where we want to be. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so the second category we'll touch on is community-led grants and education in one bucket. I'll talk first about our grants and partnerships and then about our community education programming. So for our grants and partnerships, these play a really important role in supporting local agencies and community organizations over the years, especially true now as challenges with like the federal and state funding environments continue to ramp up. So we continue to be a key funder for those, both large and small organizations. So the team, the community investments team that awards these grants and partnership funds works to meet both large and small organizations where they're at, and we have a no wrong door approach. So trying to find the right resources, whether it's sponsorship funds or partnership funds or a levy grant for organizations. And a lot of the organizations we work with first come to us through that community partnerships and sponsorships funds. So since 2013, Metro has awarded over $9 million from just the levy grants and partnerships funds to over 160 organizations. These have helped inspire new approaches to restoration and local nature projects. With the 2022 levy alone, we've awarded so far 2 cycles of grants, so over $1.4 million to 17 organizations, 1 nature education and 1 community stewardship and restoration grant cycle. And exciting to share, as you maybe know, that this summer you'll be able to award the 3rd cycle of grants for community stewardship and restoration funding. And awards will be made in July. Just 1 or 2 examples of the types of projects that this funds is restoring habitat in the Tryon Creek State Natural Area in preparation for returning salmon, guided by Indigenous knowledge and practice through a new cultural restoration plan, supporting DPAVE in transforming pavement into a new green space with food garden at Morning Star Church in Cully, and supporting Verde's urban habitat programs work to install rain gardens and naturescapes, and offer education and maintenance support for low-income and BIPOC homeowners in North Portland. The 2022 levy also, like I mentioned, has awarded over $800,000 to 130 community partnership events and activities. So these are kind of smaller scale, one-time often, or a series of events and activities that are really community-led and identified. One example is funding given to the Beaverton Black Parent Union for something they call Black Family Nature Connection Series, which supported increased access to nature for Black families on the west side of Portland by intentionally creating culturally relevant, welcoming, and educational outdoor experiences for families who've expressed that the traditional outdoor spaces don't feel like it's for them, or feel uninviting, or lack cultural representation. So really centering those community voices, traditions, and learning styles in a nature experience. Looking ahead, as we kind of look out for the next couple years and looking back, for these grant programs, there's always more demand than supply of funds, right? But we can see that continuing. But the good thing is, with the recent budget cuts, that hasn't impacted the dollars that we've been granting. So that's been a constant through, and we'll stay at that similar level, about $1 million a year through the remainder of the levy. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So, we know that many of the region's residents know and love our sites, but want to highlight our community education and stewardship program that, for a lot of folks, actually serve as the front door for nature and experiencing it at Metro sites through a range of community-led gatherings and stewardship and education opportunities. So what this looks like on the ground is, each year our community education and stewardship team welcomes over 5,000 kids and adults to 30 of our sites, so both our developed sites and some of our natural areas, for after-school classes, community stewardship events, and also just public events that anyone can sign up for to do forest bathing or do a stewardship opportunity, and we post those on our website and also try to share those with you. The levy funds also supports water safety events each summer at places like Blue Lake and Oxbow, and ongoing partnerships with the urban indigenous community and tribal members to organize cultural activities and harvesting on our sites. And the biggest of these, which you probably know, is Salmon Homecoming, welcoming over 3,000 people to Oxbow each year. So, we expect this work to continue with this levy, and the kinds of things that this bucket and these programs try to do to evolve to meet community need and opportunity includes focusing the activities to really support communities that have often felt like nature is not for them. So thinking about what co-creation looks like and really customizing activities. The team is working to expand the breadth and depth of the types of educational offerings we can provide. So things like I said, forest bathing, different arts and crafts activities. So really building out the portfolio of activities we can provide each year. And then we do have a small portion of funding that helps for community groups reduce barriers to participating if it's like need to get transportation help or support, other supports. So really anyone who wants to can participate. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So the third and final category that I'll cover is restoration and land management. This gets about a minimum of 40% of levy funds. We know that voters rate water quality as a top priority. Water quality matters for fish. It matters for anyone swimming, fishing, boating on our rivers, and it also matters for anyone who turns on their kitchen tap. Every time someone in Washington or Clackamas counties turns on their faucet, the water that comes out was cleaned and cooled when it passed through a Metro natural area on the Tualatin, Willamette, and Clackamas rivers and all the tributaries. The same is true in Multnomah County when water is pulled from the Columbia Slough. Over the 3 bond measures, we've acquired over 15,000 acres of habitat on behalf of the voters, which helps us protect priority habitat across the region in alignment with federal, state, and regional conservation goals. But we know that protecting land is only the beginning. The levy-funded restoration and maintenance work allows us to get more from nature in the short term and the long term by accomplishing ecosystem services like this water filtration. One metaphor we're working on, and you can tell us if it's helpful or not, that is that natural areas are like houses. The bond supports the big upfront cost to buy and remodel through land acquisition, stabilization, and bond-funded capital restoration. But the levy is, as we all know, very crucial for the ongoing maintenance, which if you don't have is kind of a problem in natural areas and houses. So levy funds investments in this type of land management and restoration, regional partnership and monitoring activities to improve water quality, protect habitat, and also reduce wildfire risk. So some of the activities of like what this looks like on the ground is each year levy funded restoration about 6,500 acres of our natural areas, 46 planting projects and weed treatments at over 80 sites each year, supporting regional collaboration efforts like the Clackamas River Invasive Species Partnership and many others, proactively managing our nature parks and natural areas to moderate fire risk within the context of our own mission through an integrated set of strategies at a programmatic and site level, and then fulfill reporting requirements to DEQ as an officially designated management agency under the Federal Clean Water Act. And just to note, we just saw some reporting and happy to share just underlining that the outcomes of this work and the partnerships that we support, that the Clackamas and Sandy Rivers continue to be some of the best performers in Oregon in terms of salmon recovery. And obviously that's a shared effort and success, but some of that can be attributed to our investments and work. So looking ahead, as we think about the rest of this levy and levies in the future, we're assuming that we'll acquire an additional 1,500 to 3,000 more acres through the life of this bond measure, and we're looking to identify the properties that have the best impact. The good news is that bond funds allow us to perform those initial stabilization activities and also some capital restoration. And what's important to know is that we have the ability to dial up or down the levy funded restoration activities. So from our perspective, how much we can support restoration shouldn't impact the remainder of this land acquisition. We can always come back to it, but the important thing is protecting land. Okay, next slide. And now I'm going to just go back to the example that John started with. So the other piece that is important to know, and we sort of hinted at, is the levy works hand in hand with our bond measure. And so talking about the Coffee Lake Creek Natural Area, which is across the street from the Villebois neighborhood in Wilsonville. So John talked about the major restoration project that we started last year. The restored wetland, as a result, will reduce flooding by slowing down and spreading out the creek. It will cool the water with shady plants, and the wetland will filter and clean water that enters the Willamette River right next to Wilsonville's water plant, which supplies 6,000 homes and businesses. So what that looked like was a crew planting over 200 trees and nearly 200,000 willows, red dogwoods, Oregon grapes, swamp grass, and other native plants. John mentioned the beavers. There's the picture there. They've already moved into the wetland and they've gotten to work. So it looks like we've offered them these branches. I think there's some fun videos of them on Metro social media, so check it out. This project, this restoration project, and the land purchases that created this space were funded by the bond. But, that was the sort of house metaphor that was like buying and doing the big remodel. So now we're in the levy portion, the day in, day out work of keeping this amazing project good. And this isn't as big and splashy as some of the bond stuff, but it's important to keep our capital investments strong. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So the last part of the house analogy is that it helps to have good relationships with your neighbors. So this aerial shows the natural area before the restoration work was done. And so if you look close, you can see a ribbon of white going around the natural area. I think on the left-hand side. This is Tivoli Park, and it includes part of the Tonkin Ice Age Regional Trail, which also runs through our Graham Oaks Nature Park, which is on the other side of the Villebois neighborhood. So Tivoli is a Wilsonville park, and the land is owned by the city and HOA and Metro, and it's really a good example of the types of partnerships we have across the region. In this case, the city's maintenance of the park supports our ongoing land management by keeping back the weeds along one side of the natural area. And by working in partnership with all these actors, the jurisdiction and the housing developers, we're able to provide nature the room it needs, and then it's close by to people. And we're also being super efficient with our levy dollars and stretching those further. Other examples of where we've implemented something similar is Grant Butte Wetlands in Gresham and along Fano Creek in Washington County. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, and this is the last slide I'll be presenting, and then we'll hand it off to GAPD. So with costs of everything increasing and our portfolio growing, year after year, the levy funds less and less of our work. And we've talked about with you, even as recently as last week, we're looking at how best to use the resources we do have and be clear where we've stretched as far as we can. We've tightened our financial belt, and we talked about that last week during the budget work session. And this belt tightening has led all of our teams to find new efficiencies and process improvements in our work and really prioritize like the most important things. So health and safety of our park guests for one, and you heard about some of those competing priorities on the fall tours as well. But even with all that work, the cuts still mean reduced park cleaning, increased maintenance deferments, fewer invasive weed treatments, and fewer large-scale restoration projects. So, as we look ahead to a future levy, we've talked about that we're going to be preparing these service delivery scenarios for you. Our hope is that they'll help you think about the different types of trade-offs and opportunities at different funding levels and with the services we want to provide. So we're not planning to go into all those details today, but we want to kind of call out on this slide the types of information that from Parks and Nature's perspective, we think are going to support those conversations. You're going to hear from GAPD about the regional investment strategy pieces. This is more the kind of technical side of things. So I'll run through this list, and this is just for you to have in your head if this aligns with what you'd like to see or if there are other things that you think are missing. So, we're going to start with council values policy direction that's already been established through agency and department policy, through our READY plan, through our ADA transition plan, and actually looking at the current levy outcomes that are from 2022. We're going to be and continuing to support existing and new coalition partners. Want to shout out to our ongoing partnerships with coalitions like the Intertwine Alliance and Oregon Trails Coalition, and working to understand the broad priorities and needs of partners and stakeholders, park providers, community organizations, conservation organizations as related to a future levy. This also includes work that Metro's Tribal Affairs program is doing on capturing tribal priorities for our Parks and Nature work as a whole. We're also going to be working to identify and quantify the operations cost drivers that are within and outside of our control. So this includes more detailed information about how much costs of things are growing, what we expect that to look like over the next several years, as well as broader trends, but also we can share information with you about what it looks like to dial up or down on managing costs of a growing system. So if we dial up or down different service categories. And then finally, we're preparing more detail on cost factors for what it takes to currently deliver our 3 core services and some of those additional operating commitments that we've already committed to. So this would be more detail about our current natural areas portfolio, what state the different things are in, how much it costs roughly for each of those types of land that we own. It also includes really quantifying some of those cost factors for commitments that we've made, such as meaningfully consulting tribes in our work. So I just want to note those things because you've already really helpfully brought those up in previous work sessions and discussions, and so want to let you know we're kind of tracking those and capturing those, and we hope to be able to bring those back to you in future levy conversations. So I'm going to hand it off to GAPD now.
So next slide, please. Thanks. So yeah, Michelle and I are going to do 3 or 4 more slides, and then we'll open it up for conversation. Next slide, as we open up this part of the presentation, we like to circle back to what we heard from you at the series of council retreats that we helped put together last fall into this year. We heard you express that our regional investment strategy should consider a set of themes, which are shown up on this slide, as well as the council priorities that you identified in that last session. So stability before expansion, protecting existing services before pursuing new commitments, phasing with purpose, avoiding voter fatigue by sequencing measures intentionally, level of service clarity, so being really explicit about what outcomes we're looking to fund, trust and transparency, clear allocation models and accountability structures. These headings were covered in the facilitator's summary report that came out of those series of retreats. And so they apply to your entire conversation about all the different investment areas that you're interested in, not just Parks and Nature. And again, the top three priorities that you identified for metro work are listed there on the right-hand side. So with that, I'll pass it to Michelle. Next slide.
Yeah, Michelle Ruffin, Regional Investment Strategy Manager. It's good to see you all. Thank you, counselors. So with the guidance in mind that Andy just went over, the Government Affairs and Policy Development Department has been working with the Parks and Nature Department to test the soil and sort of grow the roots or foundation for our next Parks and Nature levy measure. What's up on the slide, I know you've seen before at prior retreats. And I want to sort of direct us, the attention to the roots sort of foundation stage. This includes an analysis of the need, feasibility, and readiness. Key considerations include public policy solutions and finance mechanisms, stakeholder and partner alignment, and activities we've already started engaging in this stage have included connecting with key stakeholders and partners to understand the political landscape that we're operating in and potential support, what needs to be built for a strong coalition to support this work, entering into a technical assistance agreement with the Trust for Public Land, Intertwine Alliance, and the Nature Conservancy to explore financial options and potential feasibility. Looking at measures across the region and beyond for key themes, outcomes, and potential approaches that we should be thinking about. We're approaching the point of asking you to direct us to move to the next phase of consolidating a framework for what a next levy would seek to fund and build a viable measure. But first, we wanted to share some key themes of what we've already heard in this roots exploration, because that's the stage we're in at this point.
So next slide, yeah. So a really key part of that roots exploration is understanding potential support and areas of interest from the public, from stakeholders, from partners, which Michelle noted we're doing that work in a variety of areas in partnership with you. We've been conducting a sets of opinion research, doing some ourselves, partnering with outside folks to do research. And we've had the chance to update you on that both in retreats and in individual briefings. And we've been working with you to reach out to key stakeholders and partners to gauge their readiness and continued investments in parks and nature. So the good news is that there is continuing support for investing in our parks and natural areas. Public partners, the broader public value habitat conservation, efforts to maintain water quality, and providing access to nature close to home. Challenges include deep voter fatigue with new and rising taxes, a sense that local governments struggle to achieve outcomes, not so much in the parks area, but in other areas that we've talked extensively about, and a deep unease about the economic future of individuals and of the region. So this really highlights the need to focus on strengthening relationships with our stakeholders, with our partners in the parks and nature arena, doing everything we can to show the public that we are holding ourselves accountable to outcomes in all of the work that we do, and connecting the investments we make to the outcomes the public cares the most about in our communications. So as we continue to move through this engagement and communications work, we will continue to gauge partner and public interest in renewing or replacing the Parks and Nature Levy and developing the eventual framework. And with that, we'll go to the next slide and back to Michelle.
Yep. So as you've heard, we're operating in a different environment than in past measures, and there are real considerations that we have to take. I think I wanted to just name with this slide that a successful measure, still needs to have the right language at the right moment with the right campaign. It needs to be clear about what problem it is solving and what the public should see on the other side of that measure. But we also need the backstop of a solid investment framework. So that's going to help us with those things. Clear commitments to our voters and partners about these key things. What we're aiming to do, how we plan to do it, the results we think you'll see, and how we'll learn and adapt along the way. So you heard about the 2022 Parks Levy framework. This still provides us a good model for us to work on that next stage. And as we put together, these elements actually need to be critical for us to incorporate. But we do think we need to focus more on impact and accountability as we demonstrate credibility and a solid track record. Got some great examples, but of course, having an investment framework is a helpful roadmap for us. And in a time where it's more important than ever, we show and not just tell real results for the public. That's really what's going to build trust and integrity, and it's what's going to be really helpful for future measure.
Great. Next slide. So there's a lot of words. This slide is meant to show the work tracks that are already underway. There's a lot of work underway, moving through the roots phase of measure development and then eventually into the framework and on to referral. So for example, Parks and Nature, I think as Beth noted earlier, is already leading a service assessment process, including internal analyses and outreach to tribes and others. The next step will be to translate this into investment scenarios that can be brought to council for discussion, as well as further iteration with stakeholders and partners, and moving that into the framework development. Additionally, we're working closely with partners on a stakeholder connection strategy, in which there'll also be a clear role for counselors to work on that outreach and relationship building. The work is to hear input and create better relationships well before the point of referral. The outcome is a better informed framework that is responsive to partner and stakeholder input, and also hopefully more champions as we head towards the ballot. And we're working also to improve and broaden how we demonstrate the impact of the current levy, as Michelle just noted. As we develop scenarios, we can translate clear descriptions of the investment options before us and invite partners to give input and further inform the final framework. So we've been doing a lot of work on these roots and on the soil that's feeding hopefully the framework and the healthy tree. With your input today, we're hoping to finalize and bring back a detailed work plan to you in the June timeframe. So we'll go to the last slide. So for these questions, we're really hoping to get your thoughts on what John and Beth laid out in the roadmap and levy scenarios. What additional areas of information would be helpful to you in future conversations or in briefings or just in other ways of getting you that information? And what types of roles you as counselors would like to play as we work through the final stages of the roots and move into the framework process in the next stages of levy development. With that, turn it back to you.
Let's start with questions, comments. Oh, Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. I was waiting for somebody else to raise their hand, but I'll raise my hand. First of all, I have to say, in a general sense, the Oregonian article was interesting about a week ago that noted that one of the consistent things about Oregonians is that we love nature, we love the outdoors, and we have, this is a value that has basically transcended all the other changes that have gone on. And in my 5 years, I have not found anybody, and there may be a few, but I have not found anybody who does not think that we have done a good job with our Parks and Nature's levies. And so to answer the question you had on the slide, stories. We have stories. One of the key stories, and you touched on this a little bit, was the Basalt Creek. The residents of Villebois, there's two things to point out. First of all, the residents of Villebois are very happy, and I've gotten a lot of support from them regarding the restoration of this creek. Plus, it is also not only close to a TOD, but it's a WOD. The Vuela subsidized income apartments is right adjacent to this wetland, and that has a grand opening coming up at the end of May. This is a TOD as well as a WD, a wetlands-oriented development, I would call it. That's not a term we normally use. So I think that's important to note. So I think stories on the particular uses and the particular neighborhoods and the kinds of events that people do, I think are going to be very important, because I think people really support it and they recognize the kind of work that we've done, and they recognize that they have access to these parks and natures. And there may be grumblings in a few cases. There was a grumbling about 2 years ago about some fire danger in the from the Graham Oaks area, but that's been resolved and everybody's pretty happy with that. So there's, I think, stories about this. And that brings me to one question. One of the stories is about safety, of course, and that's one of the things we talked about. And I noticed that we have some water features my question is, are we part of a regional group to provide life jackets at water access points? Is that something that we've initiated or is that just something that's part of a regional effort that we participate in? Because I know we do it at our boat landings and I don't know that we do it at the West Lynn fishing dock, but most other places I've seen, we do this. So that's one question. Then the other question, and this is more specific, you noted the restoration efforts on the Tryon Creek State Natural Area. I assume that's not the state park, that's the natural area near the mouth. And is that specifically, because there's a natural area listed on our maps, and I'm not sure if that's ours or a state natural area.
Well, I can answer, I just clarify that one, that was a grant-funded project to, I think, the Friends of Tryon Creek State Park, so I may have jumbled the words, but it's definitely not a metro, it wasn't a metro project, so yeah, so thanks for letting me clarify
So
that.
it was with the state park?
Yeah, I believe so, and I can follow up if
Because
I'm
we have a
wrong.
natural area right at the mouth of Tryon Creek as well. So I was just trying to clarify that.
So we do like grants for restoration work to community groups and different organizations, and so I believe that's what that was. The life jackets, you want me to say?
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Rosenthal. So on the life jackets, we're definitely in the last several years, we've taken a concerted effort to try to bring together regional partners and have some conversations. We're not the only ones that have been doing life jacket programs like the Oregon Marine Board and others, but we've definitely been ramping up ourselves and trying to bring folks together with those life jacket opportunities, not just providing them at our sites, but handing them out to other community groups and partners, hosting things like Aquafest at Blue Lake, which is bringing together different emergency responders, different partners, culturally specific organizations to help increase and the awareness about water safety. And we've also have our online campaign. We've been trying to push out a lot more content and information. Councilor Gonzalez has participated in some of those promotionals, just making sure that folks understand that water is wonderful, it's important, it's key to life, and there's definitely the personal responsibility that folks will need to take in those safety elements. And so we've been working more to help be a bigger part of that conversation, to help raise awareness and provide those resources. Beth, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
I think that was really a comprehensive answer.
Thank you.
Sure. Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you so much. Very good presentation, lots of depth, lots of description of some of the work we're doing, down to the hand placement of the sticks that have then been removed by the beavers. And any child who has seen hoppers will be delighted that the beavers are there. And we should hop along on that popularity, because we have nature in places across the region, not just Beaverton.
Yeah.
I've been waiting a long time to say that. Our marketing people, pick up on that. But I do think that is kind of where we are, and that we need to be talking about the work that we do in a way that relates to the general populace. I think we do a really nice job of detailing where we are with our ecological, master plans. But we are in a position where the current levy rate is adequate, but not sufficient to meet all of our big ambitious goals. It's adequate to take care of what we have, but as we continue to, with the bond, acquire new property and try and do more, and we have some really big ambitions. Reading between the lines, what you're starting to lay the foundation for is asking us to stretch and asking voters if they can stretch. I don't think voters in this exact moment are ready to stretch. And one of the things that can get them there, in addition to all of the good engagement that you described and some of the work that you've already started and detailed today, how you're going to bring council in, we just need to be more engaged with where folks are. I know that I have a neighborhood association who's invited me to come and not just do my normal, here's what's going on at Metro, but they actually want to know about the flora and fauna in their local Metro park, because they're a neighborhood that abuts one of our regional properties. So we just need more of that. And it's always kind of the challenge of, do we lead with comms or do we lead with the project? And at this point, we have to lead with both. So it's right direction, and we just need to be out there with materials telling the story about why this is important. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Lewis. Yeah, we've ramped up some more of our communication strategies to getting more press releases out there, and I appreciate what you're saying of helping to make it relatable to each individual person, and for those us wonks that want to get into all of the science-specific ecology, which is great, but then also just some of those basics. Haven't taken my kiddos to see Hopper yet, so I definitely have to check that one out. And then one point to clarify, while the current levy rate has been keeping up a little bit, our projections show that at the current rate, it actually won't keep up with some of our current needs with increase that we're seeing around inflation, general costs of operation, central service costs. So we will need to be having some conversations as we're developing these scenarios for you of even what a renewal, if that's something that you all choose to do, what that would look like 5 years out, and where there would need to be potentially some reductions in services and conversations about what it is that we're providing. So definitely some big questions for us to be able to discuss with you all and with the communities and the public as we go further along in this. Thanks.
And I just want to add, you've been a really good advocate for getting more stuff on the website. How do we tell that story? So I just want to flag that's in progress with the new website. And also we're heading into summer. So how do we take advantage of movie cross promotions and other summer events? And how do we give you the tools through more neighborhood and district specific information and also our own staff to go out and talk to folks? So heard, and I don't know if you want to add anything, but yeah, great point.
No, that was great.
Councilor Nolan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I want to echo and be associated with the conversation that just went on about stories and personal connections, and a significant, who knows exactly how much, but a significant part of our constituency around the region wanting to understand how the levy affects the stewardship that we're responsible for, but also how it benefits them truly locally. So I appreciate Councilor Lewis for bringing that up. I also want to get into the wonk part that Mr. Blasher referred to. Do we keep track with our levy of do we categorize the kind of work that we are able to support with the levy funds as distinguished, for example? Certainly we can't use it for genuinely capital items, but within maintenance and operation and annual activities, do we keep track of what is for recreational areas, what is for more nature-oriented, and is any of it spent on the areas that we nurture that really are not even human accessible? And do we keep track of how much we spend around the region in connection with local governments, particularly cities who are spending funds on their local park systems for maintenance, operation, and accessibility?
Thank you, Councilor Nolan. Yes, we track a lot, and all of those things with all of our different programs. We laid out the 3 levy program areas. Within each of those are multiple teams with multiple accounting codes for all the various projects. We have things like a custom system built out called TerraTrack that allows us to track the amount of seeds that we order and put into the ground. So we get to that very granular level. We're building out more on our maintenance team, using the Asset Essentials portfolio to understand maintenance schedules on restrooms, on picking up trash, on understanding what's the status of lawnmowers. So really tracking all of those things. We've actually invested also in a new grants program called Temelio. So being able to have even more detail about who we're granting to, where those grants are going, keeping better track of a more easy way to keep track of all of those grant reports. So we have lots of information. We collect all of it. We go through all of our accounting procedures. And so we could be happy to bring back some of that information to you in different ways if those are the kind of things that you would like to see more granularly in terms of what's
Yeah.
invested, where it's invested, how it's invested.
That's really fabulous to know. I don't need to or want to look at an accounting of each seed or each sapling that we plant, but I am interested in your team's analysis of trends over the duration of the levies since the first one was approved in 13.
Correct.
And I don't know if you've done that already, but are we seeing trends that could affect our future decisions when we talk about the big three categories and allocating funds? And the levy doesn't give us, the language in the levy doesn't give either your management team or the council a lot of room to change those. But are they changing in ways that could affect how we might structure future referrals to the voters for levy renewals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question, and I feel like that's like absolutely going to be part of when we come back to you with those like service reports. That's what we're trying to do right now with staff and partners for those three core services. So bringing back those reflections, looking back on what has changed like outside of our control. And so things like invasive species, like emerald ash borer, so how that changes our levy funded partnership and restoration work to respond to those kind of events. And similarly with like the grant picture, like asking our grant managers to tell us about like changes in funding and funding availability. I think one of the things we can also bring back is a sense from our external partners, what's changing on the ground for them. So Councilor Nolan, you mentioned, do we work with local partner cities on like operations and maintenance, and outside of our grants program, we don't right now. The cities have their own operations and maintenance challenges that they're working through. So I think we'll be able to come back to you most likely in the fall with some of that more detailed information and reflections and analysis of how needs and opportunities have changed and how the levy has allowed us to change in response, and hopefully that sets up a good conversation about the future.
Thanks. That's good to hear.
Councilor Rosenthal?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to get a little bit on a soapbox here and I'll get back into this issue about stories. And first, perhaps what is the biggest story that we haven't capitalized on? And first, let me ask the question, sort of rhetorical. What is one of the three most important natural features we have in this area? It's the Willamette River. How many people understand at this point how much we have invested and how clearly we invest in the Willamette River in all of its codes? How many people know about Weber Farms Natural Area, or about Camena Bluffs, or about the Tualatin River Bluffs? How many people know about how much we have invested? I think, and I recently the thought occurred to me as I attended the Reimagine the River, is there are stories there that can show, and it includes Willamette Park, it includes the waterfront, which we have invested in, it includes the Albina Vision. How many people know how consistently we have invested in this area, and how many stories we can tell about the importance that we feel that this whole corridor has for both the natural area, both the water quality, and both the recreation potential. So I'm just suggesting that we can capitalize on this motion or this movement that is currently, well, Councilor Lewis knows a lot about the locks and about the Willamette Falls area. That's one of the most important potential features in the entire country. So I think there's a lot of stories we could tell about that.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate my colleagues for all your jokes and clever quips today. I really like the WOD. But a couple thoughts and questions for me, just mainly in the levy side for GAPD. And I recall in 22 when we went to the voters, I think there was a lot of surprise in the community in some ways. Like some people didn't know a lot of our key stakeholders didn't know we were going, out to the voters. So I'd really like to see a work plan that has a stronger sense of coalition building. And I think, Councilor Lewis said, like, we'd love to tap in and do more, like, one-on-one conversations, focus groups, town halls, meeting with partners, that sort of thing. Because I felt like in '22, it still passed with about 70% support. And that's, I think, speaks to how much our region cares about this. But we didn't do a great job, I think, on the back end, on the front end, to prepare. And I don't think we can take things for granted at the same level. So I'd really like to see kind of like how both kind of a staff and council can be deployed effectively in the time that we have before whatever referral, so that we are able to tell these stories and make these jokes. Because I think that actually the coalition building piece will be more important than ever. So I don't want us to start like flat-footed in a race. So I don't know what that looks like, but I would really love to see kind of that plan. And, each of us would happily, I'm sure, do a couple, stakeholder meetings, just so, our key allies at least are thinking about it. And I don't want to get too deep in the campaign, but I think we didn't get the support that we thought we would have because people just didn't plan for it. So I think that's really important. Also, I think in your work plan, we think of a levy as just one kind of tool, but in some ways it's multiple tools because of all the different buckets. And I'm not saying like that this is the path, but I would be curious, what stakeholders and the public would think about the different elements and then potentially splitting them into different funding measures, especially if we have like new and innovative ideas. I think people really care about water quality. I think people really care about, fire safety type things. So like, I don't know how to slice it, but like, what would some innovation in that field look like where we're looking at different measures with different utility? Because just a lot of options out there, a lot of interests. So like, I don't know, like if we're just doing a straight renewal and it's just maintaining what we got, but at a lower service level, that's not particularly exciting, but I know it's the most politically viable, but whatever options are there for this time or in the future where, we can deliver on what the region expects kind of the most. So those are my two thoughts.
Great, thank you. So absolutely in line with developing out much more of a coalition building, relationship building, storytelling process, and super exciting to hear all of you excited to engage in that. We've been developing those plans out, but we'll, put the pedal to the metal and move that forward faster. Sorry, I was trying to think of a good Beaver analogy joke, but we will also work in the talking points on that now third category of additional parks-related humor. And love the thinking about, are there different ways to look at the approach to a levy renewal, levy replacement, and thinking about the different priorities that voters and our partners have, and just exploring innovative, creative ways of looking at structuring a question, multiple questions. So very happy to develop a work plan that takes that all into account, looking at all the work that Parks is doing to parse out the spending and the needs and the goals in these different buckets.
Yeah. And I think also just being able to think through, I think there's some regional gems that we all know about that, may or may not be in our portfolio. I don't know, but like, what does that mean to like really make them, the true regional gems that the community expects? And like, how do we like talk about it together? Like,
to create excitement about opportunities or things that we're working to improve. Okay.
Yeah, because I think when we're talking about voters, it's like maintaining what we got is really important, but like people always love the new, regional asset, regional gem type thing. So like, what gets you excited and what's like, well, we just gotta do this because, you know, we still want access to nature sort of thing. So we can, yeah.
Thank you, Acting Council President Wong. Yeah, great question. Just wanted to share a little bit too on that idea of different services and, you know, appetite for the services provided. Just a reminder, I think when you all had seen some polling even, what was it, 6-8 months ago, just past fall, there was an appetite to look at an increase in the levy. So I think understanding where people are now is going to be something important through this process, and being able to look at that. We'll also be watching what else is going on in the region. The Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec has a bond measure up in May, and then Willamette Lane down in Eugene has a Parks and Nature measure, I believe. And we've been talking with some of our other local partners about things they're thinking at. So I think this is like the questions you're asking are a good opportunity to, you know, practice some regionalism and start having those conversations about not what's only important to the portfolio that Metro currently manages in that role that we play, but being able to talk to the other partners about what are some of the things that they're doing, where are there opportunities to enhance services, support those services. Because like we said, you know, where Metro is able to provide direct service through our parks and natural areas, also there's those funds and those grants that provide, you know, services to those other groups and organizations. So yeah, just appreciate the opportunity for us to think regionally, big picture, and maybe there's some other longer term conversations about what does it look like to take care of this thing that we all depend on for our livelihood and our lives, and think about different ways to invest in, those different services and by whom. So, thank you.
I'm gonna challenge Councilor Gonzalez, and just, you know, in the spirit of innovation, like I think we're totally happy to entertain new ideas. So whatever that might look like, we're looking for some creativity and magic from y'all.
Yeah, and I was just gonna chime in and say that, thank you, Acting Council President, for naming some of that, because what I love about the coalition and partner building work is that it's inherent that none of us are doing it alone, right? There's a together piece about when you're building partnerships, there's naturally new ideas, feedback that comes in, new ways of doing things, and then folks actually feel like they're doing it together, that there's not some silo. And that is, I think, so much, it has to be so much a part of the work of the next levy. So we're building out some of those plans now. I know we've talked to you about some of it, but there's just a lot more to do. So
Yeah.
we're excited.
Yeah, I'm gonna hear all our partner ideas. Just so they're all kind of on the table, and that's like what gets folks excited. So, thanks. Okay, thank you. We're gonna move on to our resolutions for the day. John, I think you're gonna stay for this one too, right? Resolution number 265571 for a purpose of allocating interest and premium from the Parks and Nature 2019 bond measure. So we're gonna turn to the 2019 Parks and Bond Measure. One, refer the measure created the opportunity for council to allocate interest earnings and unspent bond proceeds to capital costs for bond program areas. This is a council decision, and staff have briefed councilors on the recommended approach for the allocation of $33 million in current bond premium and interest earnings in briefings prior to this action. So John is still here to talk about the proposed allocation of bond proceedings and earnings.
All right. Thank you, Acting President Wong and councilors. I'm still John Blasher, Parks and Nature Director, here today to present for your consideration resolution number 26-5571 to allocate $33 million in premium and interest earnings from the 2019 Parks and Nature bonds to the Protect and Restore Land Program and the Take Care of Metro Parks Program. I'll walk through a few slides to share some background and context of this resolution. Go to the next slide, please. As a reminder, our role in the region, we just had a lengthy conversation about this when it comes to regional parks, natural areas, regional trails as well. Our unique role in focusing in three core services of protecting and restoring natural areas, providing high quality regional parks and nature experiences, and broadening our impact across the region through grants, community funding, and partnerships. Go to the next slide, please. As you may recall, Council referred the 2019 Parks and Nature Bond Measure to voters in 2019 and is designed to improve water quality, protect habitat, help connect people to nature close to home across 6 bond programs. Resolution 19-4988 was adopted by Council in 2019 and authorized the bond sales and outlined funding allocations for the 6 programs in the Parks and Nature Bond, including funding caps on all but the Take Care of Metro Parks and Protect and Restore Land programs. The amounts allocations for them are $155 million to Protect and Restore Lands, $98 million to the Take Care of Metro Parks program, $92 million to local share to support partner jurisdictions projects, $50 million to the Large Scale Community Grants program to support partner projects and public and private visions coming together, $40 million for the capital grants, which are typically somewhat smaller scale projects compared to large scale community visions, but often publicly led and involve some of our community visions projects. And then an additional $40 million for the regional trails, some of which is also granted out to our local partners. You can see the allocations on the slide and see that the bond is split between 2 major metro programs that we manage in the Protect and Restore Land and Take Care of Metro Parks. And then the other half is funds that are meant to pass through and be competitive grants to partners and local agencies. Go to the next slide, please. So this is a good time to come back to council in consideration of this action. We're about halfway through the life of this bond measure. We're looking towards the majority of bond spend down by 2031. And I want to take a moment to share how the majority of bond funds are largely obligated to be spent or awarded. The Protect and Restore Land program has already completed over 40 acquisitions and resulted in 1,850 acres and 0.8 miles of trail right-of-way. We continue to navigate a challenging and competitive real estate market where land transactions can be more complex and costly, but this program is projected to also be well on its way closer to 2031 and potentially spending down closer to FY 28 or 29. Also, that program includes not just the land acquisition, but some of the large-scale restoration efforts and stabilization. And similarly, in terms of being on track and taking care of what we've been promised to voters, the Take Care of Metro Parks programs fully committed to priority projects that extend the useful life of Metro-developed sites across the region. We're addressing some of those large ADA accessibility barriers and increasing opportunities for the region to connect with nature. Sites like the Lone Fir Memorial, Blue Lake Regional Park, Oxbow Park, and the completion of 2 nature parks in Chehalem Ridge and Newell Creek. And then when it comes to the local share and grants programs, we're making a lot of progress with those. We're getting all of our local share partners under IGA this year. We're working on our final round of the Large Scale Community Visions granting, which we'll be bringing to you later this year, as well as bringing a 4th round of the Nature Neighborhoods Capital Grants and the Community Choice Grants. So lots of good work happening in terms of getting these funds out. Next slide, please. So a little bit more specifically about what's in this resolution. As mentioned, the bond measure legislation established that the allocation of bond interest, earnings, and proceeds is a council policy decision. The resolution also noted that Metro Council may annually allocate interest earnings on unspent bond proceeds to the capital costs of any Metro bond program area. Council has the ability to decide one time on all of the bond interest earnings or continue to revisit this topic as funds become available. So to date, the bond measure has accrued interest earnings and bond premium from the 2 sales that took place in April of 2020 and March of 2025, and has generated a combined $33 million in proceeds and earnings as of December 31st, 2025. So this resolution here builds on the authority from that resolution in 2019 so that council can allocate this money to any additional funds to the Protect and Restore Land program and Take Care of Metro Parks. So our recommended approach in this is to allocate 60% of the $33 million to Protect and Restore and 40% of that to the Take Care of Metro Parks program. And then staff would come back for any future bond premium interest allocations. Go to the next slide, please. So a little bit more on why we're recommending this resolution in this split. We're confident that the approach in this resolution will allow for spend down within the allotted timeframe and help maximize the reach of the existing bond program capacity through the remainder of this bond measure. The allocation of bond earning established through Resolution 26-5571 will help address the future funding needs identified for Protect and Restore Land and Take Care of Metro Parks as staff plan for spend and award ramp down through 2031. This allocation of earnings to the Take Care of Metro Parks program allows Metro to invest in opportunities outside of some of these committed projects already, including investments to connect with nature at sites like Willamette Cove, which council took action on ensuring that there's funding for that nature park development in the future as well. The other 4 bond programs, which award funds to park providers and community organizations to invest in local nature priorities, are ineligible to receive this bond allocation, these earnings. So we have yet to award all of those available funds to meet that demand for local share grants with available funds. So while they're on track, they're not reaching the same level of need as the Protect and Restore program and Take Care of Metro Parks. Also, this allocation approach matches the original allocation percentage in the bond measure, which was supported by the region's voters. So over half of these overall bond funds as a program, or 253 million of those funds that were authorized through the resolution in 2019, allocated to the 2 program areas that Metro directly implements. So that 155 to Protect and Restore and 98 to Take Care of Metro Parks roughly represents a 60-40 split, or 61 and 39% to be precise. But it's very much in line with the what the voters had approved in the past. So we're confident that this approach will support us advancing some of council's highest priorities when it comes to land acquisition, major restoration projects, stabilization of those sites, as well as continuing to advance some of these priority capital projects in our existing parks and being able to take care of what we have. We also anticipate there'll be one more tranche of bond sales before 2031, so have an opportunity to come back to you all and have a similar conversation based on anything that may or may not have changed. I'm going to go to the last slide, and with that, thank you again for your time and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, any questions?
I have a question.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple questions. One, when we do this, I think sounds like a reasonable allocation of stuff that we need to do. Do we view the 60% as a sort of hard ceiling, or is it plus or minus certain kinds of percent? In other words, do we get up to a point where we say, yeah, we've spent 60% but we have an opportunity for Protect and Restore, but we can't go above that, or does that come to council? I'm just curious. Sometimes we put numbers in these allocations and we view them as hard numbers, and sometimes we view them as somewhat more fuzzy. And then the other question is, the work for cleaning up is, I'm assuming the work for Willamette Cove comes under the Protect and Restore, or not under, or the Take Care of Metro Parks.
Thank you, Councilor Rosenthal. To answer your first question, this isn't a fuzzy line. This is a council action, very clear 60-40 split. If we were to get to a point where we recognize some maybe more needs or less in either of these programs, then we would come back to you for any kind of council action in terms of that allocation. But within those funds, or within this direction is giving very clear direction to staff in terms of this allocation.
Okay, so we're looking at them as pretty hard numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let our Metro attorney clarify all of the details on that. And then I can speak to the other Cove question.
Councilor Rosenthal, John is correct that this resolution, as many of them do, is precise in terms of what you're actually allocating for. Council, however, retains the flexibility that should an opportunity arise, the Parks and Nature staff I would expect, come back to council and ask for an adjustment. So I think you're giving clear direction and maintain the flexibility to change course in the future should you so elect.
Okay.
Great. And to your question about Willamette Cove cleanup in terms of the remedial action, yeah, that is planned to be as a major restoration project out of Protect and Restore.
Yeah.
So some of the cleanup pieces would be on the Protect and Restore. Park planning and development is coming out of Take Care of Metro Parks.
Okay. But I was more thinking about the replanting. We have to clean it up and then we have to replant it, which comes under Take Care of Metro Parks, I think.
Yeah, there'll be a balance. Generally, when we do natural areas acquisition and restoration, those things all live within that Protect and Restore, the conservation program areas. Then when it transitions into more of the park development, that comes into more of the Take Care of Metro Parks. But we're operating both of those principles of habitat protection and park and recreation at our sites at the same time. So there's often a sharing of costs, at least when you get to the levy side of operations, like you heard in the previous presentation.
I guess my point is that there's not always a clear line between those functions.
Two sides of the same coin, I guess you could say in a different way,
Yep.
but our
Yeah.
accounting is very clear on, which of those different program areas those buckets are coming out of. But, the
Okay.
goal is to work collaboratively with our teams and with our partners that may come out and partner with us on site. Thank you.
John, we're having this conversation for $33 million of interest. Does that mean that this is the allocation if we generate interest in the future as well? Or is that like a additional conversation when enough accumulates that we can do something with it?
You're asking, sorry, go ahead.
So we have $33 million on the table right now in interest and premiums, and we're going to allocate that 60-40. But as new interest accumulates, do we just have a future conversation about future interest? Or are we bound to this allocation formula?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Wong. No, you're taking an action just on the existing 33 million, and any future premium interest that is generated, you all have the ability to, direct staff again in that of whether it's the same allocation, different. So our plan is to come back to you unless you wanted to take an action now and amend this to say, great, it's 60-40 for all future allocations, but I imagine you'd want to take some time to see kind of where some of these next tranche needs might show up between those two programs.
And we're like halfway through the program now, basically,
Halfway through the programs?
or halfway through the expenditures.
Roughly to date, I was just grabbing some of these numbers, and I think we're at 140 million spent with another 104 awarded, but some of those are like our December numbers. So we're definitely on track of what we lined out to be able to spend down by 2031. So close to that halfway point. But within both of those programs, Protect and Restore Land, Take Care of Metro Parks, we've got clearly identified projects or land acquisition targets. I have our quarterly land acquisition pipeline, so we know what's under contract, where we're in active negotiations. So feel very confident that in the two metro programs, we're definitely on track for that spending, and we continue to get those other grants out the doors to partners as well. So
This is probably really a finance question, but like if, interest rates stay where they are, does that mean in another 5 years, we might anticipate another $30-odd million of interest?
yeah, it's definitely a finance question. I don't know if Brian Kenny's here, but our finance manager, Summer Erickson's here. But yeah, all of that depends on, there's two functions that are generating this. One is bond premium. So when we sold some of the tranches, they were a non-taxable tranche. And for that, we generated premium for those sales on the bond market. So that's one function that will come in if we do another round of the non-taxable tranche. And then there's also the interest that's generated on those funds that are in the bank. So a couple different factors there. I'm looking around to see if anyone wants to come up and share more about what we could.
Just out of curiosity, I'm just trying to figure out
How
in
much
a couple
might
of
we have in the
years,
future?
how much might there still be potentially, just because I know we have all these different projects that we're thinking about.
Summer might have some projections.
So,
Summer
you know,
Erickson,
Best
Vice-
projections, ballpark.
Finance manager. Yes, fun to forecast these days, but yeah, 20 to 30 million is what I'll say today.
In 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you. Now I'm being nitpicky. I'm looking at the resolution itself. The last whereas does use the 60%, 40%, but earlier you used 39%, 61%. Which one is it?
It's 60/40 in the resolution, which we did to help just round up and make it a much cleaner, more precise for you all.
I think it makes it less precise.
Thank you. It is cleaner and more easy to break out 60/40 than getting into a 61/39. So the resolution before you is 60/40. If you'd like us to amend that, certainly we could, but we're also depending on some of that 40% to take care of Metro Parks to make sure that we've allocated enough towards your other resolution around ensuring there's funds for the Willamette Cove Nature Park development in the future.
Yeah, I'm obviously going to put taking care of Willamette Cove at the top of my list. Yeah, I just think if we're going to be using precise numbers, we might as well use them in our resolutions as concretely as we can. I will be voting for it today, but I don't need round numbers. I think we should just have a clean paper trail. Thank you.
Do you want to make that resolution or that motion?
No, because I can't even remember the decimal points right now.
All right. Okay, well, seeing no further discussion, is there a motion on resolution 26-5571?
I'll move adoption of
Move
resolution
adoption.
265571.
Second.
Second, okay. That's moved by Councilor Rosenthal and seconded by Councilor Nolan. Any additional questions, discussion, amendments? Okay, Georgia, can you call the roll?
Counselor Nolan?
Yes.
Counselor Rosenthal?
Yay.
Counselor Lewis?
Aye.
Acting Council President Wong?
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to our next resolution. This is resolution number 26-5563 for the purpose of approving the regional transportation demand management strategy as a topical plan of the regional transportation plan and accepting recommendations for updates to the 2028 regional transportation plan and climate smart strategy. In February, we welcomed the TDM team to a work session to review the strategy. We also had a public hearing during a council meeting in February. Today's meeting is to consider adopting the TDM strategy and to include it in the 2028 regional transportation plan and climate smart strategy. To briefly review the item before consideration, we have Noah Mickleberry, Senior Transportation Planner, Grace Steinbeck, Associate Transportation Planner, and Jane Seneschal Biggs, Resource Development Manager. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, Council. Thanks so much for having us this morning to share Resolution 26-5563 for adoption of the Regional Transportation Demand Management Strategy. My name is Noelle Mickleberry. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a Senior Transportation Planner in Metro's Planning Department.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having us today. My name is Grace Steinbeck. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an Associate Transportation Planner with Metro's Regional Travel Options Team.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, okay, there we go. Good morning, Jean Seneschal Biggs. I use she, her pronouns, Resource Development Manager. I'm happy to be here with you today. It's been a 2-year journey, and I'm going to hand this just straight over to Noelle and Grace for their presentation. Thanks.
Thanks. Next slide. So today we're here to present the regional TDM strategy for adoption. And as Acting Council President Wong said, we were last here at Council in February for a work session and public hearing on the plan. Since that time, we've made some minor edits to reflect the feedback that we received, which is summarized in the staff report in your packet. Also earlier this month, TPAC and JPAC both unanimously recommended approval of the resolution and strategy before you today. Next slide. This work builds on the engagement process that occurred over the course of the past 2 years of the project. The strategy was developed in partnership with TDM practitioners and informed directly by community input. Next slide. There are 3 main components of the action before you. First, the resolution language that we're asking you to take action on. Exhibit A is the regional TDM strategy itself, and then Exhibit B is a summary of updates for the 2028 Regional Transportation Plan and Climate Smart Strategy. Next slide. So before we dive into the strategy itself, we wanted to briefly provide some additional framing for how the TDM strategy fits into other regional policy and planning efforts. At a high level, the strategy is nested within the existing Regional Transportation Plan framework. As a topical plan of the RTP, the TDM strategy intentionally aligns with the vision, goals, objectives, and performance measures within the RTP and proposes updates to TDM-specific policies and strategies. Next slide. And a quick overview of how TDM is defined in the plan. TDM encompasses a range of programs and strategies aimed at influencing travel behavior, reducing the demand for driving alone, and encouraging the use of more sustainable, efficient, and shared modes of transportation. We want to acknowledge that Metro's RTP has defined pricing separately from TDM. The RTP's pricing policies and our new TDM policies cross-reference one another, recognizing the integral nature of both approaches to reducing travel demand. The TDM strategy intentionally focuses on the 3 core elements that you see here: TDM policies and planning, TDM programs, and TDM supportive design and infrastructure. I'll hand it over to Grace.
Thanks. Next slide, please. We'll now turn to an overview of the components of the adoption package before you today, starting with Exhibit A. The TDM strategy itself is organized into 6 chapters that cover the overall policy framework that guides, informs, and complements TDM work in the region, new TDM policies and supporting strategies, TDM-focused performance measurement, a framework for Metro's regional travel options program to support implementation of the strategy, and TDM funding and investment considerations. Next slide, please. At the core of this strategy are 5 new regional policies. These focus on strengthening planning, coordination, and funding, expanding financial incentive programs, supporting place-based and event-based strategies, centering community needs and inclusive programming, and ensuring that TDM is adaptable and resilient over time. Together, these policies provide a more strategic, coordinated, and implementation-focused approach to TDM across the region. Next slide, please. Exhibit B of the adoption package covers the proposed revisions to TDM-related components of the RTP and the Climate Smart Strategy. And these include a revised travel options objective under the mobility options goal, a revised TDM concept and new TDM policies, revised regional travel options and safe routes to school program descriptions, and finally proposed updates to the Climate Smart Strategy implementation monitoring measures for TDM. Next slide, please. This timeline illustrates the next steps for the regional TDM strategy following adoption. Today, we are requesting action to adopt Resolution 265563. Following adoption, the RTO program's core and emerging partners will start delivering key TDM services in alignment with these new TDM policies. This fall, Metro's Regional Travel Options Program will develop a 3-year work plan that is responsive to near-term priority strategies and to support the work our partners are leading at the local level. And looking ahead, the updates proposed in Exhibit B will inform the 2028 RTP update and Climate Smart Strategy update. Next slide, please. And with that, that concludes our overview. This is the requested action before you today. We are happy to answer any questions and really thank you for your time and consideration of this work. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I know a lot of work went into this. Colleagues, any questions? Counselor Rosenthal?
Thank you, Chair. One question, and I appreciated I had some follow-up after the JPAC meeting regarding the more granular analysis that the state is doing regarding demand, the demographics and locations, regional, whether, core, et cetera, et cetera. My question is, when is this, because I forgot, I think you told me, when is this going to be coming through, and how do you envision that it will affect the TDM report, or how will it be directly incorporated into the TDM report? And then I'll have one additional comment.
Yeah, the timeline on the OTS, so thank you, Councilor Rosenthal, and Councilor Rosenthal is asking about a conversation following up that we had about the Oregon travel study, which is going to be the first statistically significant snapshot of travel behavior in our region. And that was a study that concluded last year. As I understand it right now, the weighted data and analysis is nearing completion and should be available to the public as well as to Metro for use sometime this year, ideally this summer. And how I would anticipate we would apply that, we're excited to apply those insights to the implementation of this work. And I could see that taking several different forms, for example, helping us understand specific, definitely mode split across different travel types. Our program supports all trip types throughout the region, so thinking about school-based trips, the state of the commute, as well as community-based and recreational travel, and that will help us pinpoint who, when, where, and why folks are traveling and help us target specific investments and programs in collaboration with our partners to support identified needs as a result of those insights. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my second comment is, at what point, I mean, obviously, we made the decision to exclude pricing from this particular TDM report. But of course, in the long run, they can't be entirely separated. So how are they going to be brought back together?
And maybe more of thanks, Councilor Rosenthal. Through the regional transportation plan process, the pricing policies were defined separately from the TDM policies. And as I mentioned, we really try to cross-reference one another. And just since pricing is such a big policy discussion, those kind of live separately in the RTP. And so our approach has been to really, provide nuance for those TDM-specific policies and continue to collaborate and coordinate with the development of the RTP policies and related to pricing, and see those as kind of complementary efforts. And so I'm not quite sure what that will look like in the future, but that's just how it has been defined in the RTP process.
Well, we don't have the RTP until 28, so we have some time to work it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kicking off right now. Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
Yeah, sure. I just want to really lift up that this has been a really good process, and everything from hearing some of the previous council feedback incorporated. In particular, I know I raised the need to be hyper-focused on folks whose mobility will be challenged and impaired when we have TriMet cuts coming in waves, and a whole lot of people are going to be having to find new ways to get around. So hearing you be responsive to that is great. Hearing your responses at JPAC is great. The process included that workshop in October, November that I was able to attend. The kind of a first time that you had more than just a survey, but like real planning in the room together. That was exciting. So where I think we can always hope for more funds to be more ambitious. This plan works within kind of our constraints, and it's a good one. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, well, seeing no further discussion, is there a motion on resolution 265563?
I move 265563.
Second.
Okay. That's moved by Councilor Lewis and seconded by Councilor Nolan. Any additional discussion? No? Okay, Georgia, will you call the roll?
Councilor Rosenthal,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor Lewis.
Aye.
Acting Council President Wong.
Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, and can we bring the transportation trivia title back to Metro this year?
We're going to work on it. We promise.
All right, we'll move on to our ordinances for a second reading and votes. We have 3 ordinances today, which also propose to update the regional transportation plan. Each of the 3 ordinances concerns the locally preferred alternative for a transit project, and all 3 are familiar to council. All 3 ordinances were introduced on March 5th, 2026, and we did not receive public testimony on any of the 3 ordinances at the time. Allie Holmquist, Senior Planner, is here with a very brief presentation about all 3 ordinances before consideration.
Great, thank you very much. So I am here today asking for your action on 3 ordinances for Regional Transportation Plan amendments to incorporate previously endorsed transit project locally preferred alternatives. These were introduced back at your March meeting and will update that RTP, which does already include these projects to reflect more recent information within those LPAs. JPAC unanimously voted to adopt all 3 ordinances at their meeting on April 16th, and MPAC unanimously recommended that council consider adopting all 3 ordinances at their meeting yesterday. We are asking for 3 separate actions from you today, 1 on each ordinances. So following the public hearing, we have a slide for Deputy Council President for you to walk through each one.
We held a hearing on March 5th, 2026. We did not have one scheduled. Do you need another one? We're happy to open it.
I don't think we need one for a second reading, right?
I think we do a second final hearing prior to council action. Carrie?
We did not notice a public hearing for this, at least I'm not seeing it on our agenda. Council certainly could take public comment. Kim, I'm not aware of a specific requirement that we hold a second public hearing for adoption of an ordinance. That would be atypical for Metro's processes. So unless there's something particular with respect to the RTP that you can point me to, I think we're fine just proceeding with council discussion and deliberation.
I defer to you.
Okay. Then Deputy Council Huang, we can proceed forward without a public hearing.
And colleagues, we did receive a testimony by email, which you all should have.
I read it.
Okay, do I just go into?
Call for
Okay.
motion.
All right, we'll start with ordinance number 26-1536 for a purpose of amending the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan to include the locally preferred alternative for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. This ordinance concerns the 82nd locally preferred alternative. Staff are here to answer any questions. So councilors, any questions for staff on this ordinance?
I'd move 26-1536.
Second. Okay. The motion is from Councilor Lewis and seconded by Councilor Rosenthal. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, let's do a roll call.
Counselor Lewis.
Aye.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Yay.
Counselor Nolan.
Yes.
Acting Council President Wong.
Aye, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, on ordinance number 26-1537, this is for the purpose of amending the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan to include the locally preferred alternative for the Tualatin Valley Highway Transit and Safety Project. Let's see, staff are also here to answer any questions. No, okay, is there a motion?
Move adoption. Nolan.
Second,
I'll second.
okay. Moved by Counselor Nolan and seconded by Counselor Lewis. Any additional discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Aye.
Counselor Lewis. Aye. Counselor Nolan.
Yes.
Acting Council President Wong.
Aye. The motion passes. And lastly, we have ordinance number 26-1538 for the purpose of amending the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan to include the locally preferred alternative for the Montgomery Park streetcar extension.
I move adoption.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, it's moved by Counselor Nolan, seconded by Counselor Lewis. Let's do a roll call vote.
Counselor Lewis. Aye. Counselor Rosenthal.
Aye.
Counselor Nolan.
Yes.
Acting Council President Wong.
Aye. The motion passes. Okay, well, congratulations. Those are huge milestones.
Thank you very much.
I hope I didn't feel too anticlimactic. Okay, well, we'll move on to COO communication.
Well, we're going to keep the fun rolling because I was in the room last night with many of the amazing folks who presented to you today. We were at the Women in Transportation Services Gala, where Metro received the 2025 Employer of the Year Award. It was an incredible honor. The award, yes, but we rolled deep last night. There were 3 tables of us, and as I sat in the room and looked around, thank you, Counselor Lewis, for joining us last night. It was just a wonderful reminder of the incredible talent that we have here at Metro and the truly groundbreaking work that we're doing to create an environment and a workplace where people can be themselves, including women, and where we are really, advancing women in the workplace in ways that, have traditionally not been possible. So it was an honor to be with you all last night. Thank you for giving me the honor of receiving the award on behalf of Metro. It really is a team effort, and I'm so proud of all the work that you do, and wonderful presentations today too. Huge milestone. Good timing. So, we'll find a good place for this somewhere.
Yeah, add it to the award shelf.
Yeah. And then today, one of the amazing people who was there last night, Malou Wilkinson, is going to give an update on MPAC, and we have Ted Liebold here to give an update on JPACT. Come on up.
All right, I got up here first, so I'll go first. Right. Good morning, Acting President Wong, members of the Metro Council. I'm Malou Wilkinson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Deputy Director of Planning, Development, and Research. And I'm here to give you your update on the MPAC meeting that happened last night. MPAC met here in this council chamber last night, one of the couple of meetings in person that we're aiming to do with MPAC. I want to thank the council staff for managing what's always harder, which is the hybrid in-person and remote meetings, so thank you. I also just wanted to mention something that's really exciting about MPAC, which is the fact that we went through a couple of years ago when MPAC was being asked to make a recommendation to the Metro Council on urban growth management decisions, where we had unbelievable problems with having quorum. We don't have a problem with quorum anymore at MPAC. It's really nice, and I think we can thank the charter changes implemented at the City of Portland for helping us with ensuring that we have Portland has people there in both of their seats at every meeting. So that's an exciting update on MPAC that I just wanted to acknowledge. MPAC had a really busy agenda last night. They had several actions that they took on recommendations to you, one of which you just approved, which were the locally preferred alternatives for 82nd Avenue, TV Highway, and Montgomery Park streetcar. We're so excited to see these transit projects move forward. MPAC members also discussed another resolution that is coming to you next week Resolution 26-5577, declaring extreme heat and climate change as critical and growing threats and designating a region-wide heat season. MPAC had a good discussion about it. There were a couple of concerns raised that were concerns that the prioritization of climate change as a critical issue might impact funding decisions. That was addressed by the staff, and overall, there were a number of members who were really supportive, and MPAC voted to recommend that you approve the resolution when it comes in front of you next week. Then we had a few updates at MPAC. There was a Future Vision update where we mostly heard from Portland City Councilor Portal Guinea and Multnomah County Commissioner Vince Jones-Dixon about the efforts that they are taking as part of the Future Vision Commission to reach out to their communities to get input on the public engagement period that we're in right now. And they really recommended that MPAC members make sure that they are doing the same thing. MPAC members also heard about the work on regional land banking, which you have heard about, I think it was last month. The MPAC members were generally encouraging and saw the potential for helping them to achieve their local housing production strategies with more funding for sites, and added a few concerns about potential tax implications and just being cautious to be sure that we're working with our local partners, which we are, as we move forward on that work. And then last, MPAC heard an update on the regional transportation plan scoping. And I'll just remind us all that while the majority of the guidance for the regional transportation plan comes from JPACT, that adoption of the RTP is a land use action. And so MPAC is asked to provide advice to the Metro Council on the regional transportation plan as well. Members were appreciative of being asked at this early scoping stage, and will, while it won't be at MPAC as often, we'll continue to be taking that to MPAC. And they also recommended that we think about how we can evaluate how well past investments have achieved their stated goals, and also to think about how we might consider local housing production strategies as we're developing the regional transportation plan. And then Councilor Rosenthal and Councilor Nolan were both in attendance. I would ask if you have anything else to add.
I'll just add that several of the members noted the need for coordinating the RTP with both the housing strategies that the cities are developing. I think that was Mayor Buck, and then Commissioner Helm suggested that there's also a coordination component with the regional economic development plan and with their plans for economic development in their region. So just tying things together, saying there's a lot of work to do.
All right, so thank you. And we'll, this is the first time we're doing this, so we'll work with Marisa to make sure that this is kind of the right level of detail for you all.
Wonderful. Okay,
Great.
Ted?
So thank you. Ted Liebel, Transportation Policy Director, and I use he, him pronouns. So our JPAC meeting was a week ago today, and I think most importantly, this was our first JPAC meeting with our new chair, Councilor Christine Lewis, and a new member, Councilor Garrett Rosenthal. And I think it was a fairly smooth and easy meeting, I think because of the status of the agenda items. Really, there was, similar to MPAC, there was action by JPACT on the Regional Transportation Demand Management Strategy, which you just adopted, and then also the locally preferred alternatives for the 3 capital improvement grant programs, the transit projects that you also just incorporated into the RTP. So those are the major actions. And then JPAC was also briefed on the next fiscal year 2027 Unified Planning Work Program in preparation for action at their May meeting. And the UPWP, if you don't recall, it really describes and coordinates all of the regionally significant transportation planning activities in the next fiscal year, including work not only by Metro but also regional partners. And then in May, we JPAC will consider action on the UPWP, recommending approval by you, and on recommending approval by the or acceptance of the Regional Emergency Transportation Routes Report. They will also have an initial discussion to prepare for the JPAC trip to Washington, D.C. this fall. They will get a briefing on the I-5 Interstate Bridge Replacement Project, which will be proposing an amendment to the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program. That will be coming to council. That briefing will also come to council May 26th. And then they will receive a briefing on the TriMet budget shortfalls and service cuts. So that's the JPAC report. And similar to Malou, I'd say we can discuss with Marisa any adjustments to how we do this briefing in the future. But then I would just open it up to JPAC council members who would add anything that they would observe.
I think that was it.
Okay.
Excellent. Act one.
Okay. Thank you. Well,
Okay. Thank
I,
you.
for one, appreciate this new format. I felt like I was there. So.
Okay.
I appreciate this reporting format also. I think it provides a little bit more detail and opportunity for us to comment or add a nuance or two if we feel appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to council communications. Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you. Want to recognize all of the planning staff who took time to celebrate the award as our COO demonstrated. We got a cool recognition, but not only were we Employer of the Year, we were also the internship employer / host for 2, if not 3 of the two. Okay, we counted twice. 2 of the incredible young women professionals who were awarded with scholarships. So of 10, 2 of them were at Metro. So that's a pretty big deal for us. Separate from that counselor communication, I would like to just recognize the service and career of Ruth Atkins, whose last day at Metro is tomorrow. She has been a longtime champion of folks struggling with housing stability. Her career has been long and winding, and I'm glad that she was at Metro at the exact right moment. She's been holding close our work on integrating healthcare and housing, which is what the public is expecting we are doing, because so many folks who are experiencing behavioral health, mental health, addiction disorder, struggle with houselessness, and that work is part of our regional ambition with the RIFT. And I just want to recognize her work will not end with her happy retirement, and we are just lucky to have had her.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, 2 items. I think one is attended the ULI seminar late last week, which focused on just a sort of a report on 6 projects of significant economic development impact to the area. One was the Willamette Falls Trust project on the north side of the Willamette Falls. Another one was supposedly for reimagining the Keller, not replacing the Keller. Another one was the Live Nation facility. Another one was the Hops Ballpark. Another one was the Lloyd Center renovation and shall we say tear down and replacement. And there was another one that I can't remember right offhand. That's one thing. And then also I just wanted to report that yesterday there was a luncheon at the Convention Center of the Habitat for Humanity. They have 3 projects that are funded by our Metro Bond or partially funded by the Metro Bond, 2 in Gresham and 1 in Portland. It was quite an event. There were about 1,100 people there. So obviously it shows, and they raised $500,000 in that one event. So it was quite amazing.
Councilor Nolan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Last week, the RWAC met. It will have 2 meetings this month because of their responsibility to make recommendations to us on budget and rate setting. There is, I would say, a fair amount, but I don't know how complete it is, but concern about the rates that are proposed in the budget, while recognizing that the staff under Marta McGuire's leadership has really taken to heart the need to stay in pace with what people, particularly households, can afford to pay for garbage and recycling. We can expect the next meeting will be, for this month, will be next week. And out of that will come some recommendations. But I wanted to give a little bit of a heads up that there's this tension. And it seems a bit more palpable to me this year than it did in past years.
Okay, thanks for the heads up. All right, seeing no further discussion, the council meeting is adjourned. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for April 28th at 10 a.m. Tuesday's meeting is a budget workshop and it's scheduled until 2:30 p.m. at the latest. Lunch will be provided. That's nice. Okay.